You're watching EVH and Gear TV, brought to you by Design 39 Media. Visit design39media.com for all your website, photography, and video production needs. Microphones for EVH and Gear TV are provided by Rode Microphones, and official Van Halen merchandise is provided by VanHalenStore.com. And now, here's your host from Ontario, Canada, EVH artist Eric Broadbent.
Hey everyone, it is the weekend. Happy Friday to you all. Welcome to EVH and Gear TV. We are live, and tonight I'm joined by my very special guest, guitarist Rob Balducci. Rob, how are you?
Hey, how you doing? How's everything? Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. It's been great to have you on here. We share a lot of common interests and love, so we'll be sharing a lot of that through the evening, but really happy to have you here. And I know this is your first time by the show and certainly won't be your last. You have an open invitation to come back. But what our goal here is on the show every weekend is to be the warm-up act for the weekend. We want to get everybody in weekend mode, and we just want to get everyone set and pumped up. And if we do our job well here, everyone's going to take off and have a great weekend and get spoiled by some riffage that you're going to give us a little bit later on tonight, too.
Okay.
It'll be fun. We will jump over to our chat quite often here. I'm going to say hi right now for a special reason, because we've got one fellow joining in, Richard Henry. He's on the other side of the world, and he's a big fan of yours, and he's staying up very, very late for this one. So I'm just going to say hi for him first.
Thank you.
I'm not trying. Yeah, Richard Henry says, "Hey, Eric, hey, Rob, good morning from Northern Ireland. It's 2 a.m. over here." And I'm not trying to play favorites, because he's really staying up late for this show, so I wanted to at least acknowledge that. So awesome. And why don't we take a second? We'll jump back over to the chat. We'll say hi to everybody. So we've got Garry Davlin here as well, saying good evening. My beautiful better half Nocturnal Butterfly is running the chat. She's going to be posting links to your properties all night long. Sean Close, hey, Eric and friends. Blimpus, wow, great guest. Hello, Eric and Rob. Painkiller is here. Happy Friday, and Eric and everyone. And Les Bellin is here right now saying hello, Rob, Eric, and all rockers. So I'm going to highlight at Les, and that way we'll know where to come back at. So here's a nice little warm-up question for you. And I like to ask pretty much every guest that comes on the show. You know, some of my guests come on, they have extreme Van Halen knowledge. Some of them have a little bit of Van Halen knowledge, and some of them are just aware of what Eddie and the band has done for the industry. But how old were you when you first heard Eddie Van Halen, and what was the impact that it had on you?
I think I was, let's try and think. I was 14 years, I was probably 14 years old. I was in one of my first bands. This is an interesting story. With the other guitar player in the band was Tommy Boland from Warlock.
Know him, yes.
Yeah, so he was in the band. He was older than me, and his brother had the Van Halen 1 record.
Okay.
And I remember this distinctly. I remember Tommy was like, "Rob, you got to hear this," and I was like, "Yeah, what is it?" And he put it on, and all I can remember is thinking, because it's weird now. I go back and it's the opposite. I remember going back and listening and being like, "Wow, the guitar sounds amazing. I don't like the vocals." And now I go back now, and of course, like, I love David Lee Roth, but my first little instinct was, wow, like, I didn't feel that his voice went with the guitarage.
Okay.
That was my first impression, but...
That's okay. So it's almost like a mashup today when we take a mashup, right? And we take, one band and another, and we superimpose them, so it's almost like that with David Lee Roth with Eddie Van Halen, That's hilarious. Well, nothing wrong with that. And I see, Tesla Troops is here. Good to see you here, man. That's Marc. Marc Bush, he's one of my Patreon supporters, and he was having trouble getting into the live chat, so I'm very, very happy to have him here at Tesla Troops. Nice to have you. And here's a familiar name. This FU Tone guy keeps creeping my page. You know that guy?
Yeah, Adam.
How you doing, buddy? It's great to have you here for sure. And we're going to be talking about some FU Tone throughout the evening as well, too. Something that gets talked about on this show just about as much as Van Halen. And I shared a really cool post of his on Instagram yesterday. Man, I don't know where he was shipping them to, but he had what I called a ton o' tuna. He had like about 5 boxes.
I saw that.
You see that? Yeah. And I'm thinking there's got to be, he can probably comment in the chat, but I'm thinking there's probably 10, 12, maybe 24 D-Tunas in a box. I don't know. But there's a lot, so going out to some dealers and stuff, that was pretty awesome.
That's great.
PRS Shine says, hi, guys. Mario from... I can't read Spanish very well. Buena entrevista. I'm sorry. Bad my Spanish. All right, so that's cool. But okay, so let's talk. Obviously, we talked a little bit about the first impression. that Van Halen had on you. But this is kind of there's no wrong answer, unless you probably say OU812. What is your favorite tone period of Van Halen, and why would you pick that one?
I'd have to say that I like, Van Halen 1 is the classic. It has to be, it's a toss-up between 1 and 2. Okay. Those are probably really my favorite records. And I think it's just, you know what it is? It's, when a band is first coming out, and especially with, Eddie seemed to keep it on all the records, though. It's just, it had like that, the energy, it was just like everything was, all the pieces were in place.
Right.
And it just, it was so refreshing at the time that it came out. And I really like what I like about his tone, and it's very hard to get, I think, is that it's sustainy and overdriven at that point, but it's not a fuzzy overdrive.
Yeah.
So it almost sounded like he's playing like it kind of sounds crazy, but to me, this is my analogy. It's almost like a clean amp that just like on steroids. That's
a very good way to put it, and that's the thing. A lot of people think that it was Gain City, and really it wasn't. Like you watch, even leading up until later years, like Usfest and things like that, and some of the really cool bootlegs that we all watch out there, and you get to really kind of see firsthand and hear firsthand how it's not necessarily overdriven. It's just that cascading gain where it's clean and turned up, to all eternity. And I think also too, that's the great era, the first two records as far as tone, and for all of us chasing tone. Chasing Eddie's sound, I think that's one of the harder ones to replicate. When you get into the newer stuff, where a lot of fans that watch this show, they come in around the balance era, and we're gonna have some cool balance stories later on in the show here tonight. But a lot of people come in around that Sammy era, and some of the younger kids, and when I say kids, like anywhere from a late teen to the mid-20s, whatever, they're gravitating to that balance era. And that's a tone that's easier to achieve, I think, for people, because, with just about any pedal out there that does detuning, or even if you want to cheat with a chorus pedal a little bit, but the detuning effect is easier to achieve than that old vintage tone. And I think that's why we're always chasing it, and it's always raising that bar of how cool it is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's you think it's easy just to take a Marshall and put like a tube screamer in front of it, or just something to get that wet tone that he had back then, but it's not. We're never getting it. We get close, but we never get it all the way.
Well, again, a lot goes back to it's the story of the tone is really it's in the hands of the player. It goes back to that thing as well. And I see it in my own stuff too. Like, but look, just not that I'm comparing myself to him at all, but it's the thing about each player has their own unique thing.
Yep.
And like I have people say, "Hey, Rob, I saw you playing through that little amp, and you still had your tone." I mean, so I think a lot has to do with that. I think and so Eddie no one's ever going to be able to get it.
That's right. Well, I'm a big Helix fan over here on the show. I'm playing Line 6 Helix stuff, and you look at all these different things that are out there that are modeling. There's a million different, and you do some works with amplifier, atomic, stuff like that. So all these companies that sample things, well, we are our own samples too. We carry our own DNA everywhere we go, and that's why, like, the Eddies of the world, when you go to play, your friends are saying and fans are saying you sound just like yourself. You carry that footprint, like snapshot of what your tone is. Now, sure, you might be playing through a pig nose amp one day and a full-blown, DV Mark the next day, or Marshall or whatever, and it gets better and better for you. But to the average ears out there, they're still going to hear you the way you sound.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I mean, I'm sure there's been times you probably look back at yourself, or maybe watching some YouTube videos that maybe someone else took of you, and you're kind of like, oh, I didn't have my sound there. But yet the person who took that video is like, man, Rob was on fire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
No, definitely. Not to get off topic, but like it's something that I think that I've learned over the years in playing. I was one of those people that I would go to a show, and like you were saying, like I always try and tape myself playing.
Yep.
And I used to be at the point where I still do it, but I'm nowhere near as bad. Like I would not have a good show if I felt like my sound wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
I would just be like, too much focused on that. And I've changed over the years now. And now it's really, I go in, I plug in, and I could really just play. And it's really a mindset where you kind of have to not worry about that and just have fun and play. And I think it comes through no matter what.
I agree, because it's so easy. Like, at least for me, I'm one of those guys that gets thrown off the train tracks very, very easily. So you can't predict what's going to go wrong. You might have a power supply die on your pedal board, and you might have to run direct, and you're used to having delays and reverbs and stuff like that. And now you're out of your comfort zone, and that's where I had this a few times on the show here with different guests. Chelsea Constable said the other night too. She said, you have to practice to the point where you can get to where you can put on an autopilot if you have to. If nerves take over and you're just in a situation where you think this is going to be horrible, you go into autopilot mode, muscle memory, all that good stuff that the woodshedding, 8 hours a day will certainly give you that comfort zone of being able to get through these oddball situations.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. A couple of questions over in chat. Adam also mentioned 500, so I'm not sure if that was a total of 500 D-Tunas, but that's 500 anyways. There's a lot of D-Tunas. There's a lot of drop D going on in the world in the coming weeks. Painkiller is here saying he likes EVH2 better. There's some good stuff on that. Nothing wrong with that. And like I said, there's no wrong answer, right? It's whatever you heard that takes you back to a time. Jeff Alexander, my fellow Canadian friend, is here saying, hey, Eric. Richard Henry says, so here's a question for you. He says, what does Rob think about the AZ series Ibanez compared to his customs? And is there any new material coming? 821 was an awesome album.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Richard. First part of the question, this is one of the new AZs, and I'm digging it. I love it. Neck is it's a totally different animal. But I still am able to get my sounds, plus, maybe a little bit nuances because of how the pickups are wired. I also did a couple of things, changes. I've been a DiMarzio endorser for, since 1990, I think. And so I changed what the pickups that came in it, and I put in a new, this is a Saturate, which is a new Satch pickup, and a PAF Pro on the neck.
Nice.
But I'm able to get my sound, and the really thing I like is it's my first roasted maple neck, and what I found out is I got it. I had it set up, from my regular tech. I haven't had to touch this. I mean, the neck does not move, so I really like that. As far as it comparing to my my customs, it's a little bit, the neck is just a little bit different, but it's weird. The last couple of guitars that I had, the neck were kind of turning into this type of shape where it's a little bit smaller and not as flat,
gotcha.
and I like it. Yeah.
Looking at it from a distance, first of all, it's a very nice roasted maple neck. And I'm used to seeing the traditional, wider profile Ibanez, like, the gems and things like that in the RG series, like I was telling you off the air that I had. But that kind of reminds me, just looking at it, kind of like the profile I'd have on my Kramer Pacer. What radius is on that? Do you know offhand?
No, I don't know. I don't know offhand.
But skinnier though, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. It's I think it's they call it like a modern C shape. I think that's what they're calling it as far as how it's shaped.
Okay. And I know your skill set goes all over the map, from blues to insane shredding. But do you find I like the skinnier neck to be able to wrap your thumb around and do kind of bar some chords with your thumb and stuff like that. I imagine you can really strangle that neck with a fairly thin profile.
Oh yeah, no, it just what happens is I've been playing such a long time, and you do get like a repetitive motion type of thing.
Yep.
Thumb and stuff, and it does seem to help me with that, not getting as much discomfort after a long set or something.
Fantastic. So very good question, Richard Henry, on the guitar. And we're going to talk actually more in depth about your relationship with Ibanez throughout the program here as well, too. So there's lots more good stuff coming from Ibanez, from Rob. Jumping back to the chat for a quick second, Scott Roos is here saying hello from Nova Scotia. Got some nice Canadian friends in the chat. Sean Cook is here. Access Mario, speaking of Canadian friends. Hey, Rob and Eric. Do you know Mario?
Yeah,
he's a great guy, isn't he? Yeah, that guy he knows his gear.
Yeah.
Michael Madej is here, Eric, and Nocturnal Butterfly and Junior. Thomas Santiago's here. Hello, Eric, Rob, and everyone in the chat. David Spicer, I think it is. This is cool. He says, hey, Rob from Sydney, Australia. I followed and admired your work for a number of years. By the way, for those who don't know, Rob has the greatest collection of Ibanez LACs in the world.
Thank you so much.
Nice. And thank you for tuning in from Australia. That's fantastic. Single Coil Lover is here. Nice to see you here again. It's been a while. Let me see here. Sean Cook, any tips on a drop D with half step down? Okay, so do you have any... okay, well, he's not really asking necessarily about necessarily a D-Tuna. I guess maybe he is. Do you have any D-Tunas? Like most of yours are like...
yeah, I don't... You know what? I don't have them because most of my... I have... I would love to use like one of Adam's things, but the thing is, I'm really like a floating guy.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's you know, I don't know if the technology's gone to where you could actually use it with a D-tuner. You know?
Yeah, he does actually. He actually has two things now. And he's welcome to. Actually, he might not be able to post the links in the chat. I got to make him a moderator so he can do that. Adam, you're gonna be a moderator soon. So you see a wrench. Don't worry about it. It's a good thing. But when I got my Kramer Pacer, it's a floating Floyd. And I don't play floating Floyds. I don't like that, right? And I know that's your thing. That's cool. And a million guys out there do it really, really well. But I'm the flush guy. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to change this because it's actually very, very cool and it's making me play different. But Adam does have two products out there, and he's going to kill me for not remembering the name. But there's two products he sells that you can use. One is a spring-type device. As far as I know, the theory of it, the trem won't it won't float back on its own. But with the slightest amount of pressure, you can still pull back. You can probably do your flutters and things like that, which will allow you to have the D-Tuna. So I'm going to look into that and try that as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But and Adam has really good videos too. So to answer your question there, Sean, he has really good videos on his web she's asking for Adam's link, fu-tone.com. But anyways, there's good videos on setting up the D-Tuna because I think it comes from the factory set up for 440 tuning as far as I know. Again, Adam's he's gonna Eric, you know this. He always teases me. But there's the fine tuning adjustment, which is very easy to tune when you bring your guitar down to a half step down, and then you set it. Once you got it set, it's locked in for good. So long answer for you there, Sean, but I hope that that helps. Let's continue down as well too. David Spicer again from Australia says, congratulations on the new Blue Buddha studio. Looks fresh, fit for purpose.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Okay, this is cool. From JMHA Tube says, favorite neck and wood and the reason.
Is he saying favorite neck, meaning what, the wood?
Yeah, the favorite neck wood. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I to be honest with you, I used to be a rosewood guy, and I started, and I did a first tour with Dave Weiner, who is another really good guitar player, good friend of mine.
Okay.
And he was using maple necks, and I tried it out. At that time, he was endorsed with Ibanez, and I tried it out, and I was like, well, maple, I had an older guitar when I was a kid, and then I started to think, all the guitar players that I like, Tone, Eddie, Gilmore, Richie Kotzen, Hendrix, I mean, the list goes on. What do they all have in common? It's a maple neck. So I said, you know what? I got to get myself a maple fretboard. And then I started, like, a lot of my LECs towards the end all had maple necks on it. So I'm either a maple or a rosewood, and the reason why I ended up liking maple was, and I don't know if this is, I'm describing it because how I hear it. It's weird. The notes to me seem a little bit more faster to hear, and they got like what the only way I can describe it is it's got like a natural kind of fuzziness to around the notes. That's what I'm hearing.
Gotcha. No, that makes total sense. And it's so funny. Like you can hear these conversations. Guys will say, okay, he's playing a maple neck guitar. It's going to be bright. He'll play rosewood. It's going to be dark. I think that whole theory has been debunked. Now, there's some truth maybe to it, if you really want to analyze it. But here again, it goes back to that tone in the hands. I'm sure you could grab something with a very aged rosewood and make it bright if you wanted to, and at the same time, maple and make it dark. It is how you approach it and how you play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is so funny, too. You talk about these woods over the years, Eddie had the maple and all these other guys had the maple. The Hendrix had the maple. Then Eddie Van Halen comes and throws a curveball from left field and got, an ebony fretboard now, right? I mean, isn't that crazy?
I know.
Yeah. And as far as I know, the story on that one as well, too, I'm not sure if you know the story. I think that was, one of the old artist reps had for EVH Gear had kind of proposed an idea, and I'm not sure if it was Chip Ellis's idea or if it was the artist rep, whatever, but passed it on to Eddie and said, check this out, and then Eddie played that thing and just absolutely loved it. And it was totally left field because all of us are copying his guitars, trying to get that look and feel, and all of a sudden now we got this. Now we got to start making ebony, and who can do ebony now, right? Absolutely crazy. Over in the chat, Les Bellin says balance tone rocks. Yeah, and that is a good tone for sure. We're going to talk about that in depth tonight, and there's going to be some funny balance stories coming up as well. It's a double-edged sword in that because there's going to be a play on words and balance. We'll tell you about it soon. And for those of you that are big Rob fans, you may already know what we're talking about, but we'll save it for a little bit here. Scott Roos says, sweet-looking guitar, almost Fender-like neck. And we get this question a lot from different people, and this one's from Blimpa. Says, what string gauges do you use, Rob?
I am, this is a good question because a lot of people associate the string gauge with tone and stuff like that, and I think that's a myth as well. I'm using nines through on guitars that have bars on it. I use 9 through 46. If it's a 22 fret neck, I might do like the half nines on the top and the 10s on the bottom.
Okay.
Anything that doesn't have a bar on it, I use 10s. And it's just I've been playing such a long time with this gauge, and I think as a player, especially like a player like me, most of the time I'm playing lead things in my band. I don't have rhythm guitar play. The bass kind of takes that over live, and your hands get used to a certain gauge. So for me to start going up in gauge, it's actually going to hurt my hand.
Yeah.
So I'm not even going to bother. But when you think about it, like a lot of these people talking about, like you hear like there's people that think, oh yeah, you got to play with 11s to get that tone, and Stevie Ray Vaughan used 11s and all this stuff. And then you go back and like there was an article with B.B. King and Guitar Player where they said, oh, so we heard that you use like 13 gauge strings and stuff. Is that your tone? And he was like, 13 gauge strings. He says, I used that at that time because that's all they made. He says, I use 8s.
Billy Gibbons too.
Yeah, I mean, so look, he's got a great tone, and Billy Gibbons is the king of tone, and he uses like custom 7 gauge.
It's insane. It's insane.
So I mean, it's what's comfortable.
That's right.
And that's what you should use.
You'd almost think that Billy Gibbons strings would come like in a dental floss package.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'd never heard that story about B.B. King, and that's pretty cool. Obviously, that's someone I've respected growing up, and that's and he come from humble background, stuff like that too. And maybe that, like you say, that's all he could get. Maybe that's all he could afford. Maybe that's all they had. You know. So, and he's probably thinking, like a lot of people have said this. Why work so hard? You know what I mean?
That's what he said.
Yeah,
no, exactly.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's fantastic. So thank you for that question, Blimpus. That's awesome. Let me see. Continue down the chat here as well too. Michael Gibbons says, Monster Guitarist, learned it all from me. Laugh out loud, he says. Is that a friend of yours?
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome. So we
went to high school, yeah.
Well, that's cool. Right on. We have another person joining us from the island of Grenada. Island Sounds. Very nice to have you. You're bringing guests in from all around the world, which is fantastic. Very, very nice to see. Let me see here. Futone says Black Box. That's what it's called, the Black Box. So I think Nocturnal Butterfly is going to post Futone's link. And you know what? I'm going to do this right now. Just make it a lot easier. Adam, you are now a moderator. So Adam, if you ever want to post any of your links, I know Adam doesn't like when I do sales pitches for him, but I'm not doing sales pitches. I just, I like to talk about the products I believe in. So Adam, if you ever want to post a link, you can do that now. Okay, please do. Okay, no, he says you can't do the flutter with it. You can't do the,
Okay.
you know, so that you're going to lose that. Quentin James is here saying, hey, kids. Okay, and Sean Cook was asking about tone. And Futone says half step okay with 46 and up. Okay, all right, so that works good. Good to know. And Adam's clarifying that for a few people. That's really good. Okay, this is a good question. I had this debate. Who was I talking about this? This is from Island Sounds from Grenada there. Says, I'd love to know what Rob thinks of 7 and 8 string guitars. And I'm just, before you answer that question, I just had this conversation with somebody, and it's killing me why I can't remember who it was. Oh, it was my friend Darrin Moore from Michigan. I was talking with him yesterday. He's a big EVH guy. He's got a lot of EVH guitars. He's getting into Kramer a lot now too, like myself. Again, rediscovering. He's much younger, so he's kind of discovering for the first time. But he was talking about playing a 7-string guitar the other day at his buddy's house, and he was just kind of lost on it. And I kind of am too. What is 7 and 8 like for you?
Well, I do have a 7-string. I used to have more, and I ended up getting rid of stocks ones that I have, and I have a custom LA custom 7-string that's really nice. And I usually have like a couple of 7-string songs that are totally just like dedicated to that on each record, and then I use it like almost sometimes as a layering thing in the background. But I do like it. I don't know if I would go above 7. You know, I really haven't tried an 8-string yet. I don't find it difficult. You know what? I always think it's something. You know, it's a stupid thing, but I mean, if you haven't thought of it, I just always think whatever everyone kind of knows their notes on the B string. So on the high B. So if you keep it tuned down, like I keep it tuned to a low B, I just know that all my scales work out to be the same fingering as it would on the whatever it is in the B string. It's going to be up at the top. Yeah. So it kind of makes it a little bit. If you use that kind of analysis when you're playing, you might be able to see your scales better. It's a stupid thing, but if you think about it, it starts to pop.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And you know, it is, again, it's something to get used to on the hand.
For sure. Yeah, and that muscle memory too. That okay, now there's these extra string or extra 2 strings. Like okay, I feel a little foreign here. What's going on?
And also the muting. You know, the whole idea about the muting. I'm not really one of those guys that use the thing.
Yep, the
so
damper.
like when you have the bigger neck, there's the whole muting factor. If you're turned up really loud, you really got to worry about those other strings getting ringing.
Yeah, the string dampeners and things like that. Yeah, very cool. I was told by Rusty Cooley when he was on the show before, and obviously he's a master of, 7 and 8 string guitars with a lot of his signature ones. And a lot of times he says I said, like, how do you write these riffs? And a lot of times, those riffs wouldn't be written on a 7 or an 8 string guitar. They'd be written on a 6 string guitar, and he just shifts things over and kind of transposes them, in different ways.
Right.
Yeah, but that's cool. That's a very fair question, and that's something that I'm just not a real fan of is the 7 and 8. I like to stick to what I know best, which is not a lot either. But you know what I mean? Your comfort zones. So and JMH Tube says thanks for answering my question. Quentin James says hey. Scott Roos says I saw a video of a guy who made a guitar out of a shovel and it sounded awesome. Yeah, that's been a pretty viral one out there. The wood tone question was correct. And I think Stevie used 13s. Scott Roos is saying, and Ian Thornley, who we were talking about on the show the other night, he just goes around his house and throws on like 12 and 13 gauge strings if he's bored for fun. I would probably need tetanus shots or some surgery on my fingers if I played a 13 gauge guitar. It's bad enough on an acoustic when you got an acoustic guitar with some thick strings, but yeah. Michael Gibbons says, I inverted 9 gauge, which I use exclusively. Never mind that Billy guy. I'm the real Gibbon. Okay. All right. His name's Gibbons. I love it. Never mind that Billy guy. That's awesome. Futone, he has the power now. He's like, oh no, he has a wrench and he doesn't know what to do with it. Adam, you can kick everybody out of here if you want. Don't do that though. Okay. So this is good. This is a question from Les Bellin. And this will open up a great door for you to talk about some of your endorsements. He's asking, and you and I had this conversation off the air, but what amps are you rocking? He's asking.
Okay, so I basically delved into a company. I've been looking around for a long time. I used to be endorsed with Cornford Amps, and the company ended up kind of going out of business, which is a shame. And I was trying to find an amp company, and I was playing a bunch of stuff, and I ended up going to the NAMM show. I've been with them about 2 years now. So 2 years ago, I went to the NAMM show, and DV Mark had their booth set up, and I started playing through some of their stuff. I ended up playing through the amp, and I really liked it. You know, I had offers from other companies, and I don't want to mention some of the names, but I mean, I really don't like to endorse a product. I don't care if someone's throwing it at me, they're giving it to me for free or whatever. If I don't feel comfortable on it, I'm not going to use it, you know? So I really liked something about the company, and they seemed like a really good artist-friendly company, which I think is important. And they've been really cool with me. They've been behind me. I've been using this one called a Marigold head, which is a Greg Howe head, which I like, which I have here. They sent me a transistor, very small, like 50-watt head, which sounds really, really good. And I'm also using this thing, which I'm using a lot now on my live rig, which is it's called the multi-amp.
Okay.
And it's like a 3-channel amp, but it's modeling inside it.
Gotcha.
And that's really what I've been using a lot as far as amps. And I use their cabinets. The cabinets are great. I mean, they are so light. I could pick up the 212 with my pinky.
Wow.
It's that light, and it sounds great. And so I kind of delved into the modeling thing, and actually before that, I'm with, and I see it as 2 separate things. I see those as heads, and then now I've been endorsing them for a while. They're called atomic amps, but it's the pedals, and they're modeling pedals, and that's my sound now. I mean, that's what I'm using. I think it's come a long way, and I think that says a lot about Atomic, and it says a lot about DV Mark that you have somebody like me who you can see in the background. I have them in the studio. I was endorsed with Soldano. I was endorsed with Mesa Boogie. I was endorsed with Cornford. These are all like these 2 amp guys, and I'm really digging the amplifier in the DV Mark. So I mean, I love it.
That's very cool. Well, I know this is a different comparison here altogether too, but someone who also endorses the product is, and I don't follow the band that well. I have to admit it. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Steel Panther. I don't know a heck of a lot about them. You know, I think they're doing a cool thing. You know, they're very popular and a lot of people love them. Yeah. Satchel, as far as I know, he's running like, you know, now his new he was with Kramer for a while. He's running now with Charvel, running into the Atomic amplifier, and he's got a tuner, and he goes to the front of house. Right. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, and the same thing over here too in the world where I kind of situate myself over in the Helix world. There's and I mean there's Fractal, there's Kemper, all those things, and all of them do things really good. It's a good time for modeling for sure. Head Rush, I know Adam's got a Head Rush. He likes that. Yeah. But more and more bands, for several reasons, are doing this. They're going to modeling because modeling is catching up to where it's pleasing. It's amazing. People now, like bands, are not getting the expenses that they had at one time to be able to travel around the world carrying 16 Marshall backline, 412s, all that kind of stuff. Now, a guitar player like yourself could technically grab a dual backpack with 2 guitars in a backpack and your Atomic, and you could fly around the world and do a gig. Yeah.
I mean, I think, listen, I was thinking about this and I was coming on the show because, I mean, there's so many, being an Eddie, I'm a Eddie Van Halen nut, and most of the people that are on here probably are as well. And the thing is, to me, you got to think when I think about Eddie Van Halen, I think about someone that's was ahead of his time, an innovator, right? So when you think about that, people that downplay modeling, really I'm surprised Eddie's not messing around with it now, and maybe he is, and we just don't know about it, because that's it has to go somewhere.
That's right, innovation.
And so you wanna do it. I mean, if Jimi Hendrix was alive, he'd be messing around with modeling right now.
I know he would.
You can't just stay and be strictly on like old school. It's just that for someone that's going to progress, you can't do that.
That's right. We need innovation for sure, and we're getting to a point where it's getting kind of cool. A couple of people have said something, and I'm not hearing it now, but they were saying they heard some clicking, almost like a metronome. Is there a metronome running in the background or something?
You know what it is? It's probably my fan.
Oh, is it? I bet you that maybe that's what it is. It doesn't seem as bad now, but it's okay.
Let me know. I'll shut it off if I need to.
Okay, your fan has good timing though.
Yeah.
I think it was about 126 BPM, I think. No, it's good. Awesome. Let me see here. Continue down the chat for a second. So Scott Roos is mentioning he uses 10s on his guitars. And let me see here. Too much power for Adam with the wrench. No problem. It's all good. Richard Henry says Frank Gambale swears by his multi-amp. Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I remember listening to Frank as, that whole shred movement back in the day, through the Shrapnel Records and stuff. And Frank, I haven't really, I need to go back and rediscover him. It's been so long, but I'm glad you mentioned that name. There's so many things that are so cool about these shows going into a weekend. We get to learn some, guitar players that we haven't heard from in years and things like that. And I love that. So I'm gonna do some more discovery. And about the cabinets, do you use like 212 sometimes, just a single 212? Will that get you by in a gig?
Yeah. Right now, what I use now is I go in stereo, so I use two 212s.
Okay.
I'm not here's the problem with me going like directly from the pedal and going into the board is I have like this weird thing where I don't use monitors on stage.
Okay.
I just like to hear, and that's why I use 212s. I don't like the stuff close to my ears because I don't want to hear the guitar, and I don't want the guitar coming at me. That's why I'm wearing my Princess Leia things right now. These are actually sound canceling, so I'm really only hearing your voice through here.
Okay.
When I play later, it'll be coming out of the amps, but I mean, I don't like to hear it too loud.
Yeah.
So if I go through the monitor, through the thing, I'm going to need to have monitors, or I guess I could have a little amp in the back. And I think there's a lot depends on the sound guy when you do that. And I'm not really that much, I don't like to put all my eggs in that basket. I'd rather have control.
Of course, because you might get a killer soundman that make you sound the best you've ever been, and you might get somebody who's just showed up that they were the cook one night, and now they're the soundman because the soundman's sick. And that's the thing where I think a lot of people are afraid with modeling, and they sit on the fence with this. I see it with Helix, I see it with Kemper, I see it with everybody, that they miss that kind of, I like to say it as that kick in the ass behind you, that thump of a 412 or a 212, because you feel that no matter what. You may not hear those frequencies, but you feel that thump. And when you're walking around on stage, you walk out of that thump zone. All of a sudden, you don't hear yourself or feel that anymore. You try to get back to that spot again, and you feel that thump, and then you're back in the zone. So I think that's very cool. But there's another related question to that too. Sean says, do they have stereo bridge cabs? Stereo bridge?
So what is that with?
So I'm thinking maybe he's referring to like if they're powered and they're stereo bridged, but they're not powered anyways. You're sending a power amp to those.
I'm sending a power amp to them. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so there you go. Tesla Troop says you have an impressive collection of pedals, which we can see off to the side there, which is very cool. Do you have a few that let me see that again. Do you have a few that have had your back for years? So in other words, something that's been in your wheelhouse for a real long time.
Yeah, I mean, well, the MXR, which I have actually hooked up for later because you can't play in anything without it. So I have the Phase 90, of course. I have, my old SD1, overdrive.
Nice.
Boss, which is also an Eddie thing that he used at one point.
That's true. Yeah.
Yes.
He did that for cable runs, right? Because he needed almost like a buffer. Because long cable runs, he wanted just a little bit of a impedance boost.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I have, let's see what else. And I have like I'm a big fan of Keeley pedals. So I have a lot of Keeley stuff that he did for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw on your website, which we have the link in the description here as well too. But I saw in your photo gallery you've got a lot of Keeley modded ones, which are really cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, he does some good stuff. Great stuff. Island Sound says, Empress is one of my favorite songs, and I was wondering what inspired you to write the song and whether you might be releasing tabs and a backing track to the song and other songs you've written. Now, I did see something on your website about some backing tracks available, but I'll let you handle that question.
Yeah, all right. So Empress is off my Color of Light record, and that song was actually inspired. It was written for my wife. Her name is Karina. So that's the inspiration behind that song. And people that are familiar with me know, and people that don't know, I'll let you guys in on like what my kind of thing is. Like each of my songs, even though it's instrumental to me, I sort of have a process, and each song like has is something that it's about, or there's some sort of inspiration behind each song, and I kind of make it to the sense that it's not just like guitar noodling. It's almost like the guitar is the vocal over it. and that's what I try and do. As far as the transcription, I have a cool announcement. It's the first time I'm really saying it, and I think it's a Canadian company as well. It's a company called Sheet Happens.
Okay, I haven't heard of them.
It's a publishing company, and they're actually gonna. It's all done. They're actually gonna do my Color of Light record. So I'll definitely be posting when that's gonna happen. It's all done. They're just working on the layout, and you will be able to. It's gonna come in physical format, also digital format, where you'll have the transcription and it'll play for you. And I'll be selling backing tracks in conjunction with the release of that for that whole record.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
I like the name. Sheet Happens. That's kind of cool. A real play
Yeah.
on words. That's cool. So that's awesome. So thank you for sharing that. Sean Cook says, going to have to convince me against analog. And here's the thing too. You don't necessarily have to, when you jump into the modeling world, and every manufacturer that's manufacturing these cool products out there will tell you, I mean, at least most of them will, you don't necessarily have to go down that rabbit hole and throw everything else out and leave it there. These things are so good to work and integrate into your analog rigs, whether you're going to run stuff like in a 4-cable method. I mean, I think modeling is to the point today, and I can honestly say this, and I was a guy who hated modeling to death. You could not get me to do anything modeling. And now I've gone, 80% full on. You can integrate it with it, 4-cable method. You can run stuff in the effects loop. You can run to the front of it. You can use it as a standalone. So it plays nice with this gear, and you'd be surprised what it can do for you. And sometimes, buddy wants you to come over and fill in for a gig, and you've got no space for even a 112 cabinet on the stage. As long as you can put a small pedal board on there, excuse me, you're good. So it's
well, it's funny you say that, because basically what I do is I'm really using whatever modeling I'm using for the amp sound and the delay sound. But everything else that I use, I actually use physical. So I'm not using a modeled tube screamer. I like combining the analog effects with the amp. And I think it's a cool combination, and it's kind of combining the best of both worlds.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of guys do that, which is very cool, because there's some of these things where they just can't let go of that, the real tube screamer or the real, vintage Boss, mono delay, analog delay. And so there's, a lot of these processors. Now, I'm not 100% familiar with Atomic, but I did look on their website.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they have effects loops. And here's where people get scared. Say, well, you don't want to run this in an effects loop. Don't think of it as an effects loop. What these things do is they allow them as switchers. So basically, all you're doing is turning on a loop, which is essentially a switcher. Now it's going to put a phase 90 in front of your amp where it belongs, or a delay technically in a loop, or a reverb in a loop. So it's really cool how that stuff works.
Yeah.
Yeah. They all think about the analog guys, because 90% of their customers are analog people exploring something new.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Going back over here to the chat 1 second here. Okay, Nocturnal Butterfly sharing our links. Let me see here. I'm trying to think if I missed anything else. Painkiller says he uses 9-gauge strings. Matt Harrison is here saying, hey, all late to the party. Is that an Ibanez AZ? So yes, indeed. And Matt, you're going to get to see Rob play that here in just a little bit. I'm going to go over to one more question, and then he's going to treat us to some great riffage. We'll come back to the chat here in a second as well, too. The question I had for you, so, this is probably the last related Van Halen question, unless something comes up in the chat. So, Eddie's been, associated with some great companies over the years, and put all of them on the map, working with Kramer, we're going there and coming out with the iconic 5150, and just everybody in their next door neighbor copied that guitar. Moving over to Ernie Ball, with the signature guitar, which a lot of people are, highly seeking those guitars. Over to Peavey, which I like a lot as well too. And then, eventually now is forming his own company, and under the EVH Gear umbrella. What are your thoughts? And there's no right or wrong answer, even though some people say you're wrong, but you're not wrong. You know what I mean? Because it's your opinion. What brand of the guitar did you think was the coolest thing when Eddie finally came up with it, or was associated with it?
I have two things about the two favorites. I think first off, I like the Music Man version of the 5150, and I like the new version of the EVH brand under Fender. And I could give you two reasons why. I think for both scenarios. The Music Man, I just think that Music Man makes quality instruments no matter what they're doing. So those guitars were going to be nice anyway because those guys make such great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this having Eddie involved with it made it that much better. As opposed to now with the EVH stuff, it's the same thing. You have Fender behind it, which, come on, you know, they're great company.
Mm-hmm.
And EVH, I think, is more involved now than he ever was. So those two mixes, I think that's why those two guitars stand out.
I like that. That's a very good analogy. And I think you're very on the money when you're talking about him being more involved ever now than ever before. And I really think, you know, I've had this conversation with other people. I was on the Dave and Shane podcast. They were asking my opinion on, you know, Van Halen, you know, if they're going to be doing more touring, whatever. And they said it seems like Eddie's more focused on the guitar manufacturing and things like that. And I said, I can see that, and I think he's not only he's in a home now where he can continue to make products that he's always wanted his whole life. They're his products, and he's also kind of setting up a legacy for his family. You know what I mean? And a long legacy. You know, it's certainly not a bad move.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's take a break here from some of the questions. I'm going to flag where we left over in the chat from Matt Harrison, and you can just improv to your heart's content and give us a little bit of taste of some of those riffs.
All right. Well, listen. This is an EVH thing, so I was thinking, like, what should I do? Like, I got to be honest with you, I was never like a note for note guy.
That's okay.
And when I was a kid, like 14, I started to learn some songs, so I was like, you know, should I go over it? And you know what? I purposely, because it's just the way I am, I kind of like to do things off the cuff. Yep. I'm just gonna I'll play you some of my favorite little things that I know of some of the Van Halen stuff.
Totally fine. No one's gonna judge.
All right, so here we go. You guys are gonna know the song, so I don't have to say it.
That's insane. I love it. That's great.
I messed up a couple of things, but it's all right.
Hey man, that's totally fine. And how often do you get to do floating trem with EVH, right?
I know.
That's great. I love that neck on that guitar.
Yeah, I mean that's one of my, you know, there's a lot of songs off that record. Like I only know this main riff, but it's one of my favorite songs. Here, let's see. It's a cool riff.
Out of Love Again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That was one of the first ones I learned as well too. It's very, very cool. And Dave's screaming vocals over top of that. That's pretty awesome.
Then I like, let me see. See if I messed this one up. that one.
That's a treat. Women in Love. That's a treat. The harmonics are great on that. Good job, man.
Yeah, no, I like that stuff. I mean, that record, you know, there's so much good stuff on that record. You know, a lot, and again, like a lot of stuff, like from a kid when you learn that stuff, like I was saying before, the energy of Eddie and stuff. You know, like even though I'm not really like, I was never those guys. Like I used to be in a cover band. We used to do songs.
Mm-hmm.
I used to like get the main riffs, and then I would just do it wherever I wanted.
Yep.
You know, but that kind of stuff really, like, kind of like influenced, you know, some of my writing. Like, to me, this is like very VH. I'll play a little bit of it. I have a song called Friction.
Okay.
Take a listen to it. It's definitely some influences in there. It's
sure.
like, I'll play a little bit of the riffs. It's like, definitely got that flair, you know.
Oh, you can hear it. You can hear that there is some influence there for sure. I mean, first of all, it doesn't sound like Eddie, but you can tell that there's, you know, that vibe was there, and a good riff, by the way, fantastic riff, and
nice.
that Phase 90 always just sounds nice on everything, doesn't it?
I know.
Yeah.
See now, so what do you think of the tone? That tone, like this is like what I was trying to get on this was I knew I was going to be kind of playing this stuff, so I kind of like. It's one of my presets, but it definitely to me is definitely has that kind of sound to it.
Oh, I think it's
sound to it.
You got it. That's good.
You know, it's basically like a Bogner type of sound. And I have you know, I have that EP booster on, which gives you that bassiness that he was getting like from the Echoplex.
Mm-hmm.
So watch it with the difference. Here's without it. Put the EP booster on. Just adds a little break up in the low end.
Now, where's your gain set on that pedal? At 0?
It's like this.
Okay, yeah, exactly. And you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that because I have it as well too. And I've tried it in every configuration, but I'm running it right now through the. You can see it behind me, the 5150 100 watt. Yeah. I'm running it through the loop. And it's always on. It's an always on pedal. That never comes off.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, okay, before you had it, your amp sounded great, and then you turn it on, and now it's a pedal where you almost need to break the knob so you can't turn it off because it always has to be on.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So I mean, like I do, like you know, something like that, and I actually have a hand-wired tube screamer that I have in like just for a little bit more grit. You know what I mean? I turn that on when you need it.
Yeah, the harmonics jump out a little easier.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. No, you definitely got a Van Halen sound going on right there. So if anyone was a Van Halen, aficionado and wanted to get the tone from the gear that you're using, you've just proven right there that it can be done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, awesome. Thank you for treating us to that. That was fantastic.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's wicked. There was a question here. Let me see here. Oh, Quentin James says the feel of my two 412s cabs were epic. He used to have, he had like the Mesa steel grill, you know, the old real steel grill Mesa cabs back in the day, and he had a massive fridge rack like all of us had back in the 80s. That's pretty cool. That's how that's one of the ways he hurt his back carrying some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why it's kind of nice for some of this modeling stuff today. It's one thing to roll out on stage looking like we own the place, but it's another thing to, and not all of us have roadies, but it's nice to go home without a back injury at the end of the night too. You know, it sure is. I mean, where do you draw the line between looking cool and actually being able to stay vertical for a long time, right?
I know. Yeah. When I was a kid, I used to always bring the two Marshalls, and my dad used to take. I started gigging at 14. My dad used to take me. He used to have to take me to all the shows and carry all this shit.
We've come a long way, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for some people, it's hard to even let that go. As much as I know how much that sucks carrying that gear, now you go out there and you see these clean stages. You don't even see an amplifier on there. I mean, big acts, world-renowned acts like Metallica and everybody these days practically. And if they're using cabs, they're just there for show in some cases. You know what I mean? They're hollowed out cabs.
My pedal board now. My pedal board just seems to be getting smaller. I'm using one of those. It's on the shelf over here, but I've been basically using that those mini pedal board.
Yeah.
And I have a what do I have on there? A Univibe. I have a overdrive pedal. I have a Phase 90 and a Tube Screamer. And then off of it, I have a wah pedal.
Yeah,
and that's all I use.
Yeah, that's nice too, because I mean, and not a lot of people can do that either. So first of all, that's a hat. I mean, a feather in your hat as well too, because a lot of guys need some of these, modulations, delays, choruses, reverbs, all stereo, wet, dry, wet stuff. So not everybody can just play raw like that. So that's pretty cool too, and it's more simplistic, less to go wrong, and possible a little bit less tone degradation throughout too.
Well, you know what I learned? I learned that for this is how I got used to doing this is rehearse. When I rehearse with my bands, a lot of times we're going to a rehearsal space in New York City or something, or we go. My drummer has a spot, and it's really whatever they have there you have to use.
Right.
So I would be able to play through anything, and I would just who wants to carry on the stuff? I would bring an overdrive pedal. What do I need? My overdrive, my wah. Maybe a phase and a chorus, which is the Univibe. You can use this both. And that's what I would use for the rehearsal. I'd be able to play all my stuff. Then I was like, why am I taking all this other stuff? If I could do it here, I could do it anywhere.
That's right.
So you get used to it.
That makes total sense. And you hit on a good topic right now. You're talking about playing with the band and rehearsing and stuff like that, too. My next question for you was, tell us a little bit about the band, how you described earlier, too, like you're the only guitar player. So kind of like Van Halen, Michael Anthony had to pick up the slack. And I love that, actually. As much as it's cool hearing bands, with 2 and 3 guitar players just layering that stereo sound, I also like it, too, where, it's left up to the imagination. Bass players now carrying some of these really cool rhythm parts. Tell us about your band, the guys that you work with, and how it works so successfully for you.
Well, listen, I got you're only as good as the people that surround you, and the guys might be on a grade. I have my drummer. His name is Kenji Tajima. He's been with me for a while, and I know him for a while. And the bass player is Andrew Golba, and Andy's is like the Superman, because he's got to take the place of the rhythm guitars and do the bass stuff, because when I write in the studio and I write stuff, to me it's two separate things, and that's who I'm fans of. Again, I'm not comparing myself to these groups. It's just the musical arrangements. Led Zeppelin, when they went to the studio, they had how many guitar tracks, all this stuff on it. Jimi Hendrix was in the studio, had all this stuff, but then when you saw them live, it was 3 people, trio, doing most of the stuff, and then it was a different experience, and that's what I like to see at live shows. If I wanted to see and listen to the record, I would put on the record. I want to see something different. Right. So my stuff is totally different live, and I think that's what makes it exciting. Not only it makes it exciting for people listening, I think, but it's also exciting for me because we have the room to not do everything exact.
Yeah. And depending on how you're interacting with the crowd that particular night too, you might go off on a different tangent. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's hard to do if you're following it. Almost like playing to a click track or a backing track. Now there's room for improv, and some of the best magic can probably be a result from that. Yeah. Wicked. Well, that's really good. Well, thank you for sharing that. A couple more comments over in the chat as well, too. Matt Harrison says Robert Keeley is awesome, super talented builder. And he also mentions Sheet Happens does great tab books. They come in a ring binder, so they'll stay open on your music stand. That's cool. I didn't know that. And Jason Jesk, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, says, I hated modeling as well, but Helix changed the game for me. Still love my 5150, but so many options and convenience with the Helix. The tone is so consistent, sounds the same every day. Sean Cook says, that's a good statement, Jason. Thank you. Sean Cook says, this is a me question, but I would really like to know if Rob has played with different tone woods and has a perspective. He says he's taking a leap of faith on Karina.
Yeah, I mean, I basically listen. I was fortunate enough to have a long relationship with Ibanez Guitars. I've been with them for this year is 26 years actually.
Nice, congratulations.
Thank you. And you know, listen, I was a kid and I started playing them, and then you know, to me, it's you know, to all players, you know, when you get endorsed by the company that you're a fan of, it's a big deal. So you know, I always, you know, to me, you know, I feel very fortunate that I have this, and you know, when I was thinking about it, and I was able to get guitars built custom, I was like, wow, it's like, I don't know how this is long this is going to last, so you know, maybe I wanted to try and make every guitar different, you know, so I would experiment. So like the first two guitars, and this is it's a Van Halen thing, the first two guitars were basswood body with maple tops, curly maple, and then the other was a flame maple. And the reason why I did that was because those Music Man guitars were basswood with a maple top, and I played it and I liked the tone.
Okay.
So I said, hey, they're doing me a custom guitar, I'm going to do that wood combination. And that was my favorite for a long time. But I think as you develop, you start to want to experiment. So then I ended up getting an ash guitar because back to when it goes back to Eddie Van Halen again. The first Frankenstein is ash.
Okay.
And that sounds and ash is a magical wood. I'm telling you, I have two ash guitars and they sound so cool. And you know, with maple necks, and a lot of people think that it's going to be trebly, but it's not. It's really like ash with a maple neck to me, with no top. So it's just solid ash.
Mm-hmm.
Has really the best of everything. It has very nice low end. It has high end, and it has some really cool upper mids in there. So it's a really cool tone wood.
Okay.
And you just got to get used to it.
Right.
And then, you know, lately now my big thing is I started to like alder. So this guitar is alder, and I have a purple LAC that they did for me, which is just alder, no top, with maple neck. A lot of people like to do the alder and the ashes with the maple top. To me, and it's really guitar companies are doing it not for the tone. Guitar companies do for it because the top looks nice.
Right.
I actually think that the alder sounds better by itself, and so does the ash without the maple tops.
Okay. Well, very good analogy. I have one guitar here that I think is alder, and I feel bad I don't know actually for sure if it is. It's and it has an Ibanez connection. It's a Yamaha Pacifica 921. And it was you'd know this fellow because you've been working so long with Ibanez. If I get his name correctly, Rich Lasner. He was one of the luthiers. Yes. Yeah, one of the luthiers at Ibanez, and then he went over to, or he had some conjunction with Yamaha back in the day. But he made that nice cutaway, which was really nice on the back of the neck. And I'm pretty sure the Pacific I have is an alder body, but it's heavy. It's heavy. I'm gonna research that for sure. And some of the guitar fans in the chat can correct me. And trust me, I'm not afraid to be proven wrong. But I think it's alder. But that's really cool. And here's a question I've never asked any guest on the show, and this is just a theory. I want to ask your opinion. So a lot of people criticize sometimes, they'll say to Eddie, oh, Eddie's only making all these guitars with basswood because it's cheaper to produce. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I don't know what the manufacturing costs are between this and this and that. But what is your thought on Eddie choosing the basswood?
Basswood, the reason why basswood is chosen, and you could say that about, look, you buy the latest Sir guitar, which is $5,000, and it's friggin' basswood. I mean, the reason why a lot of companies are choosing basswood is because basswood is a type of wood that it has if you look at the scope of the sound, like if you were to look at it like on a graph, it's like I was saying before, it's got like a good bottom end, it's got good sustain, and it's a light. So a lot of people started doing it because of that. Okay. And the basswood with the maple top I do like. Okay. Because it gives you a little bit more of a high end, coupled with the warmth of the basswood. So those two combinations are good. I think Eddie, is, listen, I only met him once, and I don't know him, but to me, he seems like the type of person that's he's making the stuff that way because he likes the way it sounds. It could be plywood. If it was plywood and he liked it, that's what the guitars are going to be.
That's right. No, that's really good. I appreciate you giving me that response because I've never asked that, and I should do that more often. I want to ask people's opinion on that. But I agree with you too because like I've got several of the USA PV Wolfgangs, a basswood body with a beautiful maple top, and then obviously now too with his own brand, he's doing the same thing again, and it shows if he's continuing to do that, it's something that he wants. That's his sound. It's his shtick now. So yeah. Perfect. I want to get into another question here in a second. Actually, we're going to talk about meeting Eddie. That's going to lead up to that one in a second too. But something I think is a really cool story that you can share with us. Number one, you had the honor of being on Steve Vai's record label. And Steve Vai is another guitar player. We talk about Eddie Van Halen, obviously, religiously here on this program. But other guitar players that pop up occasionally, his name comes up. Joe Satriani, probably one of my second favorite guitar players. I'd say probably on my list after Eddie. Steve Vai I love to death too. But I mean, Steve, now you were on his label, and you have 3 out of 5 records on his label. So tell us how that became, how you got on that label, and what it's been like for you being on that label. And my second, it's a double-edged question here. Steve is also, I was watching some interviews where he has like literally praised you. Guitarists have to have certain key elements. And he says, Rob has it. So first, tell us about getting on the label and how that's worked for you. And then tell us what it's like to hear words of praise from someone you've idolized your whole life.
Well, I was fortunate enough. This is is a cool story with Steve. Steve basically, I used to work at the record company, which was Relativity Records, Import Records,
cool.
When I was straight out of college. And it's around the time that Flexible came out. And so I was familiar with, I was a fan of Steve's work, and it was great. I was working at that label, and there was a couple of times where I got to meet him, and so he was able to put, like, my face with a name. And then years later, he came out that he was going to be starting his own record label, and it was going to be distributed through the company that I was working at.
Okay.
So I was like, wow. And I released my first record, Balance, which was released through the same company, which was distributed through Sony, which his label was going to start to be distributed through. So I was like, wow, and it was a long period. I had the second record done, and I was like, I need to find a label, and I was searching around, and Steve, all of a sudden, this thing that came up that he was going to do something. So I sent him an email, and I said, I have a record that's done. What's going on with your label? Can I send it to you? So he was like, listen, he says, I'm just starting this, and he said, let's wait a little bit. Send me another email in a couple of weeks. And I said, all right. So I sent him another email. I said, send it through. So I sent the thing through, and this is a true story. And he sent me an email back, and he's like, listen, he says, Rob, I'm getting. You wouldn't believe how many tapes I'm getting, and he said, I don't know if this is something that I'm going to be able to release at this time. And I said, all right. I said, and I wrote it back. I was honest. I was a little like ticked, and I was like, all right. I was like, listen. I was like, I've been working in the industry that he's opening in the record business. I said, listen, you're going to get, and not that I was like tooting my own horn. I said, you're going to get a lot of stuff, and I said, I'm confident in what I sent you, and I said, you'll see when you get the other stuff that you're probably going to like mine. This is what I said. So
that's cool.
That happened. I sent the thing, and I was like, all right, whatever. A couple of months later, he got back in touch with me. He was like, I re-listened to your CD, and he says, let's do a test release in Europe. And I was like, all right.
Fantastic.
So that was the start of it. That was my second record, Mantra, and we released it in Europe, and then it was released in Japan, and then we did it worldwide. And then the 2 records after that, we kind of did the same thing. And so, to me, it was awesome because it was his label, but also just because he really did the label out of love for the instrument. Mm-hmm. And there was so many, I was on, Eric Johnson was releasing the record, Steve Lukather had something out on there, all these like incredible players. And, so me just being associated with that, wasn't you know, enough to like I could die. You know what I mean? That's it. I got something done.
I almost feel like he was testing you to see if you actually believed in yourself as well too. You know what I mean? Because you know you saying, "Look, man, you're gonna like my stuff. You're gonna like it." You know, as some people might just say, "Here, take it and run away and hide." You know, so I think that's pretty cool the way you approached it.
Yeah.
And then now, of course, too, he's in several different interviews, he's actually gone on the record to say, you know, Rob has that thing, you know, it takes a certain, I don't want to quote him because I'm going to get it wrong, but he said something along the lines of, you know, first of all, you have to have the technical ability, and then you have to be able to have, I forget how he phrased this, but it was such a beautiful statement. Maybe you can tell a little bit better than I can. I'm sure you can.
I think it was, he said something in the sense that you have to have the technical ability, the emotional investment.
That's it. Emotional investment.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there was one other thing. I mean, and no, it's true. I mean, when he did like this, I released an instructional DVD, and he did like this interview before it. He was only supposed to do like a couple of questions and do an intro, and he ended up doing like this 20-minute interview where he said all this this crazy stuff. When I heard it, I was like, oh my God, you know. I was like, I remember I was so you know, proud that this happened. I remember, you know, I want to bring it up because my mom passed not too long ago, but I remember playing it for my mother, and she knew Steve as well, and she was like, she started crying. She was like, "Oh my gosh!" She says, "He's saying such nice things about you," and she goes, "I'm so happy that, you know, he believes, you know, what I knew all along." Well, I was like, "Thanks, Ma."
I'm really happy for your mom that she lived long enough to hear that about her boy. That's pretty awesome. Proud mom moment for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, that's very cool. My mom was very, very influential and very important to my musical career as well, too. So nothing wrong with being a mama's boy a little bit.
Yeah.
That's nothing wrong with that.
You know, the second part of your question where you were saying about, like, how it feels and stuff, I mean, to be honest with you, it's like I'm lucky enough that I was able to get him to say some nice stuff, and I'm fortunate enough to have met some other players, you know, that seem to like what I do. And to me, it's really, you know, the industry is such a hard industry, and I've been doing this so long, and the record industry, the music business, that we all know has changed.
Yep.
So the thing is, really, the only thing that keeps you going is the motivation and the love of what I do. And so hymns, like when I hear him say that, you know, sometimes I have to, you get discouraged with the whole industry. Going back and listening to that always gives me a little bump, like, you know, hey, I gotta keep going, you know what I mean? It gives you the motivation.
I like that. And the fact that he said emotional investment. Now, there's many people out there, we see them on YouTube every day, all these super shredders, and they can shred, but they don't have the emotional investment, and that you have it. That's fantastic. And I just have to say this quickly as well too. Richard Henry just did a $4.99 super chat, so thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. Super nice. And you talked about your DVD as well too. And there's a question in the chat. David Spicer says, check out Rob's instructional DVD, outstanding amongst many other similar offerings. So fantastic. And I'm starting to get some slowness here on the screen too. Hopefully it doesn't continue. Let's continue down the chat. I'm not sure if Richard said something here as well too. I want to go see if I can find that. He says, thanks guys. Going to have to check out the rest of this later. Up for work in 4 hours. Thanks guys. So thank you so much for watching, Richard, and staying up so late. And also for that $4.99 super chat. That was very kind of you. Let's go back up a little bit here as well too. We've got about 15 minutes left in the program. Let me see here. So Sean Cooks is saying Unchained for you to play Unchained, but you're not in drop D. Yeah, so we'll leave that one for another day. Matt Harrison says very nice. Olympus says just amazing. A lot of people love that. Ron Paget's here saying Rob always has killer tone.
Thank you.
Oh, here, this is cool. From Futone, from Adam says, cool note, Rob played right now at my 50th birthday party in New York City and killed it.
Yes. That's the only time I learned a Sammy Hagar tune.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I remember the stuff from 14. If you asked me to play that song now, I wouldn't be able to play it.
That's hilarious. I love that tune as well too. So thanks, Adam, for reminding us about that. And I think a couple other people jumping in here as well. And actually, I want to say hi to my grandson. My actual young grandson is watching. B-Man22 saying hi to everybody. Zach Thong is here. Hey, Eric and Rob. Nice to see you, Zach. The Law, Jamie Trevino's here saying hey, guys. Marcello Vieira is here watching from my smartphone, Eric. Very good transmission. He's over in Italy, and he's doing some Spanish-speaking demos for us here on EVH and Gear TV as well, too. He did a good one a while back, and he's got another one up on the Phase 90, what we're talking about. And even though there's many demos out there, there's hardly any in Spanish language. So I'm sharing those on my channel. So thank you as well, Marcello. I appreciate that. And Sean Cook says, I have no problem with someone carrying my stuff. Here's one last question from Island Sound. Says, besides Ibanez, what other guitar brands do you like? I'm sure we all endorse certain brands, but we all obviously have other brands in the house. You got a couple others that are real special to you?
I gotta be honest with you. I have 29 guitars. They're hanging up on the walls. They're all Ibanez. The only guitar that's not an Ibanez is my godmother, when I was 13 years old, bought me a Gibson The Paul.
Oh yeah. There you go.
That wood guitar.
Yeah.
That's the only other guitar and the brand that I have.
Okay, that's totally fair.
Yeah, I'm an Ibanez nut.
Yeah, that's right. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. So I want to share. A lot of people are looking forward to this story. So let's go back to balance. We've been hinting at this word balance all night long. So there's a connection between Van Halen and you in the 1995 era. So tell us about this story, how this all come about. I'm going to let you just set the whole thing up.
All right. So basically, it goes back to what I was saying before. I was actually working at a record label, and there was a band that we had on the label which was called Our Lady Peace.
A Canadian band from my guys up here.
Yes. And they had the opening spot for Van Halen on the Balance tour in Jones Beach Theater here in New York City. So here's the thing. I came out with a record, and I called it Balance. And the thing is, it came out before theirs. So that's the funny thing. And,
okay.
And I'll bring what happens later. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go to this. I want to go to the show. And it just so happened that, there was a guy at the record label that had, and this was my first time that I ever got like an all-access pass. The guy was the A&R guy, and he came over to me. He says, Rob, you're a guitar player. He says, listen, I can't go tonight. Just take this pass and go to the theaters. And I was like, I don't need a ticket. He says, no, just take the thing, go up to the door. Don't worry about it. So I was like, all right. So he gives me the pass, this thing, yep. The laminate. I go, my at that time was my girlfriend at the time, drops me off. I go up to Jones Beach Theater, and I was like, I don't know. I remember talking to her. I was like, I don't have a ticket. It says to go up to so I go up to the door. I show him the pass. The guy goes, come in. And I was like, well, where do I go? He says, just keep walking towards the front. I was like, all right. So I'm walking up Jones Beach. I get to the stage area. They said, yeah, go through. So I go backstage, and I'm like freaking hanging there. And I was like, wow, this is cool. There was beer. There was food. So I was eating, hanging out. And then I started to see people that I knew from the industry because I'm a guitar player. There was the guy from Guitar Player that reviewed my record, came over, and he was like, hey, Rob. I was like, hey, what's going on? I saw him, and then the guy that was their road manager, his name was Bob Dates at the time. He was with them for a long time through the Sammy years.
Okay.
He was working at the record label doing dual jobs at the label, and then he was the Van Halen guy. Okay. So when the Van Halen went on the road, he took off from the label. So he knew me. So he goes backstage. He's like, Rob, I was happy to see somebody because, to be honest with you, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, you
I
kind of need
was
some
by
company.
myself.
Yeah.
So he's like, he was like joking with me. He goes, Balducci, you doing anything at the moment? I was like, no, I'm sitting here by myself. He says, why don't you come with me? So I was like, all right. And I had a feeling something was going to happen. So I always would carry a bag, and I would have CDs with me. So we go into he takes me, and I was like, sure, where are we going? He says, just follow me. So he goes in, knocks on this door. We go in, and it's Eddie and Alex shared a dressing room. It was their dressing room.
Yeah, they're pretty tight.
Yeah, so we go in, we walk in the room, and there was actually like a full drum set in there. Alex is playing, Eddie's like noodle on the guitar, and this guy Bob goes, hey guys, I want you to meet a really good friend of mine. And he goes, Eddie, he's a really good guitar player. You got to meet this guy. His name is Rob Balducci. So I go over there. Eddie comes up to me, shakes my hand. Alex just steps up behind the drums and says, hey, Rob, what's up? So we're talking, and I was like, we said a couple of things. Listen, I wish, it was the day now with the phones that would have pictures and everything. So he goes, I was like, do you mind, Eddie? I said, listen, you're a big fan of mine. He's like, he says, thank you so much. He was really cool. And I was like, do you mind if I give you a CD? So he goes, no, not at all. So I take it out and I give it to him, and he looks at it. He says, ballads. And I was like, I had it friggin' first. So he's like, oh, wow. He says, this is funny. And I was like, yeah. He says, no problem, And then it was like, another guy came in, and it was like 5 minutes before they were going on. So the guy was like, we got to go. And I said, all right. So I start walking out, and all of a sudden, Alex screams, what am I, effing wood? Meaning that I didn't give him one. So I would go back in, and I had another one. So I said, here. So I give him the CD, and as I'm walking out the door, he yells again, Alex. He goes, get an effing singer. He must have looked at the thing and saw there was just no singer. It was instrumental.
Right. That's hilarious. So he actually wanted it.
Yeah. No, then the cool thing about it was I ended up seeing Alex later, and he actually was pretty cool about the CD. He came back up to me, and he was like, wow, he says, this is like a weird vibe. He says, even if you look at the what do you call it? The print of he says it's very similar. He says, we're sort of like we got the same vibes going on.
Yeah, parallel universe kind of thing.
Yeah. But it was very cool. They were very nice.
That is so very cool. What a fantastic story.
I just wish I had, it was the digital age and I had my camera.
Yep. But you know what, though? Sometimes that memory that you're going to have, it may change over the years, but you have that locked away for the rest of your life. That'll never go away.
Yeah.
Yep. And I mean, if people don't believe your story, who cares? You were there, you lived it, and that'll never go away. That's a really, really cool story.
Yeah. I just now, now that, after the fact, once you'd be able to soak it all in, I remember going in, and the dressing room was it was kind of cool. It was like they had their own little thing set up, and they were just kind of jamming back there. It was kind of cool. That's really, that'd be awesome to be the fly on that wall. Not a lot of us get to experience that, so that'd be very cool. Yeah.
Oh, what a great share. And that's so cool too, like a bit of a rivalry between you two, having balance, and I had it first. I love that. That is so cool. And so I mean, thank goodness for your friend there at the label.
Yeah.
If you were away on a vacation that weekend or something, oh man, you know what I mean? You would have missed a chance of a lifetime.
I know.
Yeah. And I know what you mean, like being backstage like that, you're just kind of, okay, you need somebody. Junior and I had the opportunity the other day with Smashing Pumpkins. We were backstage, and, you talk about the laminates, there's one right there. We each had those, all access for Smashing Pumpkins. And you walk through and you just realize you can walk through anywhere you want. Then you're almost like, okay, well, now what do we do? And same thing as you, right? You're looking for someone, oh, there's a friend. I know this guy. I can go have a conversation, Yeah, it's pretty cool. You mentioned about Guitar World, so people that reviewed your record, that's another question I wanted to ask you before we wrap up the program. I mean, every guitar player out there, all of us, I'm sure we've all had this dream. Oh man, one day I'm going to be on the cover of Guitar World, or I'm going to be interviewed, or I'm going to place an ad in Guitar World, or whatever it is. You just want to be in the magazine. You've had the opportunity to be in magazines like Guitar World, Premier Guitar, and a lot of other prestigious magazines worldwide that publish worldwide. What was it like the very first time? And I'm curious too. Maybe we'll throw this back to your mom again too. God rest her soul. But maybe she got to see you in a guitar magazine the first time, proud of her boy. What was it like that first time?
Well, I remember the first magazine was actually Guitar World magazine, and it was a review. They did a little kind of like blurb, and then they did a review of the in the magazine of the record.
Okay.
And I remember I still have the weird thing about it is when you move, I have whenever something like that happens, I'm like a kid. You know what I mean? I'm in the guitar magazine. I have to buy 4 copies, so I have piles and piles of magazines. Do I really need 4 copies? But you get. I was like, it's it's ecstatic. You know what I mean? It's it feels so good. Again, it's just there's so much hard work that goes into it. So it's sort of like a validation. It feels good. And again, it's something. that at least you could, it keeps you motivated. But again, I don't want to. I want to bring this up because we've been talking about this, but listen, it's great that that Steve Vai said things, and I have other guitar players say stuff, and Guitar World did this and that. But really, what means the most is from people that have been coming on the show and saying that they like the CD, the DVD. The other guy says, "Hey, Rob, you're a great guitar player." It's really the people that are listening, because that's what really makes me want to do more stuff. Because if they don't like it, then what am I doing?
I agree with that so well. And here's something you'll totally appreciate. This question was asked to me by the Dave and Dave Unchained guys on their podcast. They said, what do you think about Eddie when he's in these guitar polls and he comes in like 5th or 10th or things like that? And what does that matter? How, what does that matter to you? And what are your thoughts on that? And I'm like, you know what? The only thing that counts is on the street. And just like you said here, screw. I mean, I love all these magazines, and I'm not trying to disrespect any of them. But a lot of times these polls are dollar influenced. Okay, so you're on this label. This label spent a lot of money with us in advertising, so we're going to favor this guy. It's not it is what it is. It's a business world. But when it comes down to the real world people on the streets, like you say, people in the chat today talking about you, that's where it counts. It's very cool and very humbling, and you can drop a couple names here and there, but the people that matter, the fans that would do anything to come and see you at wherever they can, and they're praising the stuff, then you've done something well that you can be proud of for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's fantastic. And there's a lot of people here tonight as well, really enjoying the show. I'm seeing great feedback here as well, too. Blue Smurf here in the towards the end of the comments saying, love the show. Sean Cook, he's asked lots of questions tonight, says, great show. He's got a roll. And I'm seeing other great comments as well. Thomas Santiago saying, great show, Eric. Andre is saying, don't forget the Van Halen backstory, which we talked about. So as we have about 3 minutes left on the program, I hate the fact that we're getting close to the end of the year. It's certainly not the end of the year, but we're in the final quarter. NAMM's coming up, Winter NAMM in January, and NAMM has always been a big thing for you. I see you very, very busy. You're out there doing what you should be doing at NAMM, networking with all the people out there and doing it very successful. I think a lot of people could take notes from you, the way you work NAMM. Like you physically work it. A lot of times you're on the NAMM dime where you're there to play for certain people, but you're working. When you're not working, you're working. Right. And I really respect that. Tell us if there's anything you can share with us, what you're aiming for NAMM 2019, and just any things that you'd like to talk about.
Well, a couple of things. First, since we're on the NAMM thing, NAMM is a really good thing. I like to go out there. I like to meet face to face with a lot of the people that have been helping me, like the endorsement companies, Ibanez and Atomic Amps and Morley Pedal. So what I try and do is I go out there, and I think this year it's probably going to be, I've been doing it for a while, and I'm fortunate enough to be demoing for Atomic Amps. So I think that's going to happen again this year, and I'll probably do something at DV Mark as well. And I'm thinking Morley probably as well. So I'll have a couple of spots throughout the 4 days where I'll be playing at their booths. And I do like a backing track thing, which is fun.
Cool.
And then take questions about the equipment and stuff like that.
Nice. And get to interact with your fans, one-on-one is so cool. Some of these people that have caught you, on the road and things like that. It's one thing to play for the manufacturers, but to interact with the fans, where they're just loving it. They're starstruck, get a chance. Hey, I get a picture with Rob, and now we live in the digital age. They can get a picture with you, They're like you with Van Halen, but now it's, it's 2019, right? Yeah.
So so I'm looking forward to that. I'm also in the midst of what I have coming up. Again, I brought up that, so keep a lookout for that on my social media. The transcription book, and I'm working on a new record. So hopefully we get that done soon.
Oh, that's fantastic. We got lots to look forward to. So 2019 is going to be a great year. We'll look forward to that. And you talked about your links. We have all of them. Well, I shouldn't say all of them, but we've got Facebook, we've got Twitter, we've got Instagram, we've got your YouTube, your website. I think there's even more in there as well too. And you can find all of Rob's properties on there. Follow him closely, subscribe, all that good stuff. Last couple comments over in the chat. Robert Ortiz says, great interview, thanks again. Andre Laredo says, great show, love it. Tesla Troops, we had trouble with him getting into the chat. I was trying to do some troubleshooting with him today. Good to have you, Mark. Tesla Troops says, great show, very inspirational, thank you. Les Bellin says, great show, Eric, great guest, cheers, Rob. And David Spicer says, great guest, great interview, great show. We're at the 90-minute mark. We have done this. I think we ended this on a high note. I hope, Rob, you had a good time your first time on the show, and I opened the door for a return anytime you'd like to come back on. Did you have a good time? Oh,
it was great. Really, I love it. I also brought out this book. Do you have this book?
I don't have the Van Halen Encyclopedia. I'm very familiar with it. That's a great book.
Get it.
I know. I know the book inside out. I don't own it, but that's a great book. And Van Halen Rising is another good one as well too. Yeah. I love that to death.
No, I love the show. I mean, I really appreciate you having me on, and thanks to everyone that came in on the chat. And if I could mention one more thing that I didn't mention before.
Please do.
Listen, I'm very, I do keep in touch with people that send me emails. So if you reach out to me on Facebook, you have questions about guitars, my music, if you have questions about my equipment, please hit me up. And also anybody, that's interested in taking lessons, it's with Skype now. I do all over the world. You just send me an email or hit me up in one of the social media things. If you're interested, we could definitely could fit you in somewhere.
Oh, fantastic. That'd be great. Some people pick up some lessons from you for sure. So no problem. People hit Rob up for sure. Adam says, well done, boys. Futon. Nocturnal Butterfly has posted our link to our merchandise as well, too, at broadstash.com. Quentin James says 90 minutes. We're getting good at this. After about 2.5 years, we're almost getting our crap together. It's coming. And Les Bellin says balance. So listen, everyone, we hope we are able to warm up your weekend for you. Please have a fun and safe weekend. I'm back here again on Sunday for the Helix Hour at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with world-renowned cellist Tina Guo. It's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be a fun show, and that's the return of Helix Hour Season 2. Looking forward to that. And Access Mario's back. He said his phone died, so Mario, you're going to have to jump back and catch a little bit of this. Rob, I'm going to say goodbye to you off the air, and I want to thank all of you so very much for tuning in. Last announcement, too. I totally forgot about this, but this is going to be it's kind of this soft launch. Picked up a new show sponsor today that's sponsoring the program, helps with a lot of things. Stewart Travel Guitars is now the official primary sponsor for EVH and Gear TV, so I'm very, very thankful for that. The link is in the description down there below as well, too, stewartguitars.com. But they're the primary sponsor for the show, and I'm very blessed with that. They will be getting a lot of their love starting next week, so you can see a lot of new intros and graphics and all that kind of cool stuff. So watch for that. Everyone have a great weekend. See you Sunday possibly, and follow Rob's links in the description down below. Rob, say goodbye to you off the air, and everyone, we'll talk to you very soon. Until next time.
Thank you.
Hey, you're still here? Eric Jr. here, reminding you to check out our full lineup of quality merch. Available right now in the Broadstash Boutique. Quality products and fast shipping. Visit broadstash.com today.
I am now on Patreon. If you enjoy my content and wish to support my channel and what I do, then please check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/EVH Gear TV. Your support assures the continued growth of this channel and a fun community in which to share our love for Van Halen, music gear, and much more.
My name is Eric and I'm playing Wolfgang guitar.
Video production services provided by Design 39 Media. Visit design39media.com for all your website, photography, and video production needs. Microphones for EVH and Gear TV are provided by Rode Microphones, and official Van Halen merchandise is provided by VanHalenStore.com.